Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to be looking at a very unique book today. It's kind of hard for me to kind of think of an introduction for this book even because it blew me away in more ways than one. I don't know. So hopefully I'll talk about it and some of you might be sold on it. So we'll kind of get into the meat and bones of that. So, as you can see on the quote in the screen, or maybe I'll just read it, the author said, I conceived this book as a way for beginners to overcome their initial fears and for more advanced witches to overcome blocks. Very noble, also very challenging as a goal. So I just want to make a note before I continue. The author is mostly writing from a Wiccan perspective. I have never been a Wiccan, so some of this feels a little foreign and different to me. That being said, I feel like a lot of people hear terms like Wiccan and they're automatically kind of not wanting to sink into that because of like the conception of, white lighters and such. I can promise you, this is not that kind of book. Like, this is not at all that kind. I'm a Tradcraft practitioner. I started out my spiritual path as a Satanist and still practice left hand path stuff. And I do not really vibe with what some people might consider white light. I don't really like that term anyway, even as a derogatory term. Not that derogatory terms are good, it's just a very bad insult if you are going to insult people, which I don't condone, but I'm saying all of that because I am trying to say this book is very powerful, and I think it's especially useful for Wiccans, regardless of what kind of Wiccan you consider yourself to be. So, the author also says that it's useful to know that background. Well, I'm putting my background out there as well. So, you're going to get my perspective interpreting what the author wrote from her background. So it's kind of like background squared, as it is reviewing any book. Now, what caught my eye right away is that the pictures in this book are gorgeous. Like, that snake kind of iridescent picture you see on screen now. All of the like chapter transition pictures are like that. A lot of the illustrations are kind of have like this soft, informative, not very busy, but also very beautiful feeling. So, if you're a very visual person, you'll appreciate this book. But that doesn't mean that the substance is taken away from. The author is very considerate with a lot of perspectives. I was a little bit surprised for the author to kind of have a very neutral explanation of the left-hand path in there. And in addition to that, there are also a lot of philosophical things the author tackles, like fear, magical practice, nature-human relationship, death, a lot of very strongly polarizing subjects, I would argue. But it's handled with care. It's handled with consideration. It's handled with the author saying, so this is my background, kind of putting perspectives on paper, both her own and I guess is from talking to people and considering sources. It's very useful, practical, and diverse information, both philosophically and in the exercises. The exercises, I think, would help beginners most. This is basic 101 stuff, but this is probably the most clear way I have seen 101 practices like meditation and considering the directions and the clairsenses, as the author terms them, like clairvoyance, in a very tactful way. So this is just a summary of why I was impressed with this book, and I usually do not try to buy books that primarily focus on Wiccan like paths, and this is one of the few times I did, because I heard so many good things about it, and I am not disappointed. This is probably one of the best purchases I have made, and I wish this book existed when I was just starting out, even if I never was a Wiccan. Speaking of which, I really think this book is more useful to some people than others. I'm not a Wiccan, and I'm also an intermediate practitioner. This book was very inspiring, but I didn't end up adding anything to my considerations or practice. But I have been kind of on the path I have for a long time. People who are newer to a path might be in the middle of changing their path or are very unsure about where they are in life, might find this book more helpful than I did when I picked it up. But it is still a very good book. I could not find any faults with it. I think the author did an excellent job balancing everything perspective-wise and information-wise. And it's also a very visually beautiful book. That is very rare for books that are both visual and attempt to convey information. So, very good job, author. Lydia. I hope I said that name right. Would I recommend this? So for beginners, this is absolutely a must-read. For everybody else, sure. You're not going to hurt yourself by having this on your shelf. Who knows, you might buy it, have it on your shelf for a while, and then come back to it when you're in a block or something. This is one of those books where it's hard for me to say I don't recommend it. I absolutely do recommend it. It's one of those books where if somebody says, "What do you think of this book?" I'd say, just get it. It's, like I said, I'm not Wiccan. I don't do a lot of the considerations the author has. I'm not very big into astrology, where there's a whole section on astrology, but I still found this useful in some respects, kind of like considering where I am in life, for example. So I think for people who are spiritual, who have a Wiccan background, or who want to see something new in magic but are afraid of something, This is an excellent book to get. And I like to close with encouraging everybody to consider subscribing. I try to post a video every other Saturday as of now. I hope you found this review useful. It's not very often I give glowing reviews, but I try to make the reviews informative. So, yeah, I hope to see you around.